Before I dive into this story, if you've ever been dismissed by someone who swore they loved you, hit subscribe, because what I learned might save you years of doubt. Adam's laugh carried across the rooftop bar, the kind of confident, effortless sound people instinctively turn toward. He stood beneath the amber lights, champagne glass in hand, his other arm around a woman I barely knew. "Camilla," he called, his tone light, performative. "You'll understand. Verda's had a good run, but sustainable fashion isn't exactly scalable, right?" The laughter that followed was the polite kind, brittle and fast. My throat burned. I'd spent 10 years building Verda from a rented studio into a recognized tech fashion brand. And he, my husband, my supposed investor, was announcing that he was pulling support in front of 24 VCs and founders. I smiled, because that's what women like me are trained to do. "Scalable or not," I said, lifting my own glass. "At least it's profitable." His eyes flickered, but he recovered with the smirk that used to charm me. Then he gestured to the woman beside him. Sleek, blonde, 28 at most. "This is Kara. She's working on something disruptive. AI meets influencer logistics." His voice gleamed with admiration. He had never spoken about my work like that. Kara extended her hand, feigning warmth. "Adam says you're the creative one," she said. "It must be nice having someone analytical balance you out." I shook her hand. "I built the analytics engine myself," I replied, steady, calm. "But yes, balance is essential." Something shifted around us, a quiet tension that smelled like burnt ego. Adam cleared his throat. "Anyway," he said, clinking his glass, "to new ventures." People murmured their congratulations. I excused myself, my heels clicking against the marble as I crossed to the balcony. Below, New York pulsed, neon veins of power and money. I gripped the railing and breathed through the ache in my chest. Verda was everything I had fought for. Proof that the girl who sold repurposed denim in Sao Paulo could compete in Manhattan's glass towers. Adam had been part of that story, yes, but the narrative had always been mine. My phone buzzed. A text from my CFO, Aisha. "Adam asked me to send the investor list. Should I?" I stared at the screen, realization chilling me to the bone. He wasn't just pulling funding. He was taking my contacts, the network I'd built pitch by pitch, night by night. I typed back, "No, tell him those files are under NDA." Then I turned and saw him through the glass, laughing, head tilted toward Kara, my husband of 10 years, the man who'd once told me he'd bet his future on me. For a moment, all I could think was how absurdly cinematic it looked. Betrayal bathed in rooftop light. I wiped my lip gloss, squared my shoulders, and walked back inside. If Adam wanted to play investor wars, he'd forgotten who taught him the language of power in the first place. If you've ever woken up with that heavy, hollow feeling, the one that sits behind your ribs like a stone, you already know how I felt that morning. And if you've ever had someone steal credit for what you built, stay with me. You'll understand exactly why I stopped being polite. The city outside my window glowed in shades of gray and gold. Manhattan mornings always looked clean, as if the night's sins were scrubbed away by sunrise. I stood at the kitchen island of our Tribeca apartment, staring at the untouched cup of espresso Adam had made for himself hours earlier. The faint ring of milk foam still clung to the porcelain, a careless signature left behind by a man too self-assured to clean up after his own mess. The event replayed in fragments. His hand on Kara's shoulder, the laughter, the word scalable echoing like a verdict. 10 years of partnership reduced to a sound bite at a rooftop mixer. My inbox overflowed. Investor messages, press inquiries, congratulatory emails for him. "Adam Blake expands portfolio," one headline read. My name didn't appear until the 4th paragraph, lumped under former spouse and co-founder Camila Rivera. Former? I blinked hard. He'd already changed my title in his press release draft. Verda's Instagram had DMs piling in. "Is it true Adam left? Are you merging with Kara's brand?" Gossip moved faster than facts in our world. I typed a calm, professional response. "Verda continues operating independently under my leadership. Exciting announcements soon." Then I shut the app and opened the file that mattered, the equity contract. When we married, Adam insisted on blending personal and professional. "It's synergy, babe," he'd said, signing his name beside mine on the early incorporation documents. Back then, he was the charming investor with a Rolodex, and I was the dreamer with prototypes sewn from upcycled ocean plastic. He put in seed money, yes, but I repaid him threefold once Verda went profitable. He just never updated the paperwork. A rookie mistake, I know. But love makes you underestimate risk. My reflection in the black laptop screen looked sharper than I felt. Dark circles under my eyes. Hair in a careless bun. Still wearing the silk slip from last night. Somewhere between humiliation and clarity, a switch flipped. I opened the shared investor folder and froze. Several files were missing. The export logs showed activity at midnight. Adam's account. He'd copied every major contact sheet, supplier list, and PR plan. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was corporate theft. The buzzer rang. I flinched. Then I heard his voice through the intercom, casual as ever. "Cam, it's me. Forgot my tablet. Forgot." Like forgetting was an accident, not a strategy. I pressed the door release but didn't move from the kitchen. He stepped in moments later, wearing the same navy jacket from the night before, looking annoyingly composed. "Rough night, huh?" he said, smiling as if we were still partners. "You humiliated me in front of half of New York's startup scene," I replied. He shrugged. "Come on. It was business. Don't take it personally." I wanted to laugh. Personally? I had poured my 20s and 30s into building something sustainable, something that could change how fashion treats both people and the planet. And he was sleeping with a woman whose idea of innovation was algorithmic influencer matching. "Adam," I said, voice low, steady. "You downloaded proprietary data." "My data." His smirk faltered. "It's our data." "No, you invested. You don't own my work product." He leaned against the counter too close. "Look, Camilla, Kara's startup is growing fast. There's synergy between her AI model and your sustainability algorithms. If we integrate," I cut him off. "We? There is no we. And if you touch my IP again, I'll see you in court." The silence between us felt heavier than any argument. For a brief moment, his charm cracked, revealing something colder underneath. "You really want to do this?" he asked quietly. "You want to make this ugly?" I looked him dead in the eye. "You made it ugly when you tried to erase me." He sighed, grabbed his tablet, and headed for the door. "You'll regret this, Camilla. I made you visible." That sentence would echo for months. When the door shut, I finally exhaled. My hands trembled, not from fear, from the surge of clarity that comes right before action. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Operation Reclaim. Inside, I began compiling everything. Timestamps, download logs, screenshots of his press release drafts, receipts, literal and metaphorical. If he thought he could spin the narrative, he didn't understand that I was the one who'd built it in the first place. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. A message from Aisha. "Investor chat is heating up. Rumor says Adam's meeting Kara's team today. Want me to leak something strategic?" I typed back, "Not yet. Let them think I'm broken." People underestimate silence. That afternoon, I walked to Verda's headquarters in Soho, a renovated warehouse filled with glass, plants, and recycled materials. My employees greeted me cautiously, eyes full of unspoken questions. I smiled. Team meeting in 10. Standing before them, I felt the weight of what was coming. "We've had a shift in partnerships," I began. "But Verda isn't collapsing. It's evolving." I outlined the new strategy: direct-to-consumer relaunch, AI-driven sourcing, and a limited edition line launching under my sole name, Rivera. As I spoke, I saw the energy return to their faces, that mix of loyalty and defiance only startups breed. When the meeting ended, I returned to my office, locked the door, and opened one more message waiting in my inbox. Subject: Forbes Women in Tech, confirming your availability for interview next month. I smiled for the first time that day. Adam had always said my name didn't carry weight without his. I planned to prove how wrong he was, and I wouldn't need his shadow to do it. Outside, the city roared like it knew a secret. I slipped off my wedding ring, placed it beside the computer, and whispered to no one, "Watch me scale this." Before we go on, if you've ever been told you only succeeded because of someone else, this part is for you. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying the person who doubted you. It's proving they were never the foundation you stood on. 3 days after the mixer, New York felt colder. The city had its own way of reflecting your emotional climate. Skyscrapers looked sharper, taxis louder. Every conversation carried the faint hum of competition. I hadn't heard from Adam since that morning, but I didn't need to. His silence was never peace. It was strategy. That afternoon, I sat at my office desk, staring at a headline on TechLine Daily. Blake Mentor's new female-led startup in sustainable tech. The accompanying photo was of Adam and Kara in front of a screen showing graphs that looked suspiciously similar to Verda's carbon impact algorithms. I exhaled slowly. The PR machine had started. He was using my work as a launchpad for hers. But in the small print of the article, something unexpected glimmered. One anonymous investor source expressed hesitation, citing potential overlap with prior commitments. That phrasing was deliberate, the kind only one person I knew used, Marcus Layton. Marcus was one of the first angels who'd ever believed in Verda. I hadn't spoken to him in months, not since he sold his stake to a private fund, but he'd always respected my business mind, not Adam's. I typed quickly, "Marcus, need 15 minutes. Confidential." His reply came 3 minutes later. "Call me. Now." His voice over the line was rougher than I remembered. "Camilla, tell me you didn't sign anything letting Adam license your IP." "I didn't," I said, "but he's been positioning it as shared ownership. Typical. Look, he's been pitching Kara's app as a data integration project. Half the VCs think it's an offshoot of Verda. If you want to shut it down, I'll help. But you need proof." I already had it. The download logs, the matching graphs. "I can prove everything," I said. "Then get your narrative out first," Marcus replied. "Press, investors, social, perception is equity. And Camilla, make it hurt." After the call, I leaned back and stared at the framed prototype of Verda's first fabric sample, a patch of ocean blue polymer weave made from recycled fishing nets. It wasn't just material, it was metaphor, from waste to worth. I wasn't going to let Adam turn that into another ego project. I drafted a new press release. Verda announces independent relaunch. 100% female-owned, expanding sustainable AI platform. I attached new visuals, emphasizing leadership, innovation, impact. Nothing reactive, all forward motion. I scheduled the release for Friday at noon, exactly 1 hour before Adam's scheduled investor briefing. Thursday evening, Aisha joined me in the office. The city outside buzzed with late spring energy, but inside, the air smelled like coffee and adrenaline. "Everything's set," she said, scrolling through the media list. "Once this goes live, his PR team will choke." "Good," I said. "They've been feeding the story that Verda's folding. Let's feed them the truth." We clinked mugs, a quiet toast between two women who'd clawed their way through boardrooms full of polished predators. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept running simulations. Adam calling reporters, Kara spinning narratives, investors texting me back-channel questions. But beneath the chaos, there was a strange calm. I was back in control of the numbers. At 11:58 the next day, my finger hovered over the publish button. Aisha's message flashed. "You ready?" "Always." I hit post. Within minutes, the analytics dashboard lit up, engagement climbing faster than I'd ever seen. Comments poured in. Finally, a woman founder standing her ground. "This is how you reclaim your power." Even Forbes tagged the post in their Women to Watch segment. Then, at 12:43 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Camilla," came the voice I'd been waiting for. "Marcus?" "Not this time," the man said, amused. "It's Richard Hahn from GreenEdge Capital. We saw your announcement. We're interested in discussing a Series B. How soon can you meet?" I paused, heart pounding. GreenEdge was one of the largest sustainable venture firms in the country, the same one Adam had been chasing for months. "I can meet tomorrow," I said evenly. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Don't bring your husband." Click. I stared at the phone, then laughed softly. The irony was cinematic. The meeting Adam had wanted for a year was now mine, because I'd stopped waiting for his permission. That evening, I went home to find a courier envelope on the counter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Adam. Inside was a short note. "Camilla, I hope you realize what you're doing. Let's discuss terms before this gets ugly. Dinner? Eh?" I didn't even finish reading. I fed it through the shredder and watched the paper turn into ribbons. The next morning, I arrived at GreenEdge's office, a glass monolith overlooking the Hudson. I wore a white suit, clean lines, no jewelry except a single silver ring my mother had given me years ago. "When people stop seeing your shine," she'd said, "make them squint." Richard Hahn greeted me personally. He was older, sharp-eyed, with the kind of calm that only billion-dollar decision-makers have. "Your pitch deck impressed my analysts," he said, leading me into a minimalist conference room. "But your story impressed me more. A founder surviving a hostile exit, that's resilience. I smiled. Verda's always been built on resilience. And data. We talked for an hour. Supply chain verification models, carbon tracking, AI optimization. Real numbers, real strategy, not Adam's buzzwords. When it was over, Richard leaned back, studying me. We'll fund you, Camilla, not the brand. You. But there's one condition. We want to feature you on the cover of our sustainability report. Publicly. Are you comfortable being the face of this movement? For the first time in weeks, I didn't hesitate. Completely. He extended his hand. Then welcome to the future of Verda. Outside, the wind carried the faint scent of rain. I looked out over the city. The same skyline that had witnessed my humiliation now reflected sunlight on every mirrored surface. That evening, Forbes emailed again. We'd like to update your feature for an upcoming spotlight. Title: How Camila Rivera Rebuilt Everything They Tried to Take. I stared at the subject line until the letters blurred. Adam once told me I'd never be enough without him. But standing there, reading my name in bold, I realized the truth he could never admit. I was never his reflection. He was mine, and I'd finally stepped out of the mirror. Before we go on, if you've ever had someone try to rewrite your story while you were still living it, remember this: the truth doesn't need defending, it just needs documentation. The morning after my Green Edge meeting, the sky over Manhattan looked rinsed clean, all silver and white. I woke before dawn, adrenaline still coursing through me. For the first time in weeks, I didn't dread my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked composed, dangerous in her clarity. My phone buzzed with a flood of notifications. Investor blogs, LinkedIn tags, a dozen congratulatory texts from founders I hadn't heard from in years. The narrative had flipped overnight. Camila Rivera, comeback queen. A headline in TechBeat read, while her ex plays mentor, she plays master strategist. But beneath the triumph, there was still unfinished business. Adam hadn't called again, but that only meant he was maneuvering. His ego wouldn't let him accept defeat quietly. I'd learned that the hard way, in boardrooms, in bedrooms, in silence. At 9 a.m., Aisha walked into my office carrying 2 lattes and a folder thick with papers. We got the Green Edge term sheet, she said, and a message from Adam's lawyer. You'll love this one. I flipped open the folder. The Green Edge contract gleamed like a victory banner. $5.5 million in Series B funding for Verda's expansion into Asia and Europe. But stapled behind it was a letter printed on embossed stationery. Blake and Associates. Notice of intent to claim intellectual property share. I read it once, then again, slower. Adam was formally claiming partial ownership of Verda's proprietary algorithm, citing joint conceptual development from our early marriage years. A legal attempt to leech off my work and to scare off investors. Do we have enough proof to refute this? Aisha asked, brow furrowed. We have more than proof, I said. We have a trail. That trail began 8 years earlier. Spreadsheets, receipts, an email chain where Adam congratulated me on finalizing the algorithm alone. He'd even written, "You're the genius, Cam." I still had it. By noon, I was sitting across from my attorney, Clara Wu, in her Midtown office. Clara was a quiet assassin. Minimal jewelry, maximal precision. She read through the letter without expression, then set it down. Classic intimidation tactic. He's bluffing. I want to end the bluffing, I said. Permanently. Then we go on offense, she replied. File a preemptive ownership affirmation that forces him to either produce evidence, which he doesn't have, or withdraw. I nodded. Do it. As Clara typed, I thought about how far Adam had fallen in my mind, from partner to parasite, the kind of man who mistook proximity for contribution. Back at Verda, Aisha was pacing near the window. You might want to see this, she said, handing me her tablet. It was a screenshot from Kara's Instagram story, a photo of her in Adam's apartment captioned, "Building Empires Together." Below, a commenter had asked, "Is this connected to Verda?" Kara replied with a single winking emoji. Perfect. Ambiguous enough to imply partnership, reckless enough to violate trademark boundaries. I smiled for the first time that day. They just gave us ammunition. That evening, Clara drafted a cease and desist to Kara's company. The subject line was simple: unauthorized association with registered brand. Immediate action required. The email was legal dynamite disguised as courtesy. By morning, the response came. From Adam himself. Camilla, can we meet? Please. No lawyers, just us. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. We met that afternoon in Central Park, the same place where he'd proposed 10 years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. He looked thinner, his confidence dented but still trying to shine through. "You've been busy," he said, hands in his pockets. "So have you," I replied. He sighed, eyes scanning the crowd instead of me. "Look, I made mistakes. Maybe I handled things wrong, but you're blowing this up. The lawsuit, the press, it's unnecessary." I folded my arms. "So is theft." His jaw tightened. "You're really going to ruin me over this?" "You ruined yourself," I said. "I just documented it." He laughed once, bitter. "You think you're the only reason Verta worked? I brought investors, connections, strategy. You brought introductions," I corrected. "I brought the product. There's a difference between a key and the hand that turns it." Silence, then quieter. "Kara's pregnant." It hit like a dull impact. Not shock, but confirmation. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "She doesn't deserve to be dragged into this. She dragged herself when she copied my algorithms." He looked at me then, really looked, maybe realizing for the first time that I wasn't bluffing. "You've changed," he said softly. "No," I said. "I just stopped negotiating with people who confuse love for leverage." I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. "Camilla, they're saying you're about to sign a massive deal. Is that true?" I smiled without turning around. "You'll read about it soon enough. Maybe in Forbes." Back at the office, Clara called. "We filed the affirmation," she said. "And we got a response. Adam's lawyer already asked for a settlement conversation. He's caving." I stared at the skyline through the window. The city lights flickered like camera flashes waiting for the headline. For years, Adam had controlled the narrative. Now, the story was writing itself, and I held the pen. That night, I sat alone on my balcony, laptop open to the signed Green Edge contract. In the corner of the screen, my reflection flickered, tired but resolute. I saved the file under a new name, Reclamation. Somewhere across the city, Adam was probably drafting apologies or excuses, but it didn't matter. The empire he'd tried to claim wasn't his to rebuild. It was mine. And soon, the world would know exactly how a woman rises when she's done being underestimated. If you've ever had to smile through a room full of people who underestimated you, remember this. Silence can be a strategy, but only when you own the ending. The Green Edge contract had barely cooled in my inbox when the invitation arrived. Sustainability Innovators Gala, hosted by The Atlantic. It was one of those events where investors, CEOs, and the press all collided under chandeliers and half-truths. Adam would be there. I knew it before I even checked the guest list. Kara, too, of course. But my attendance was non-negotiable. The world needed to see who still stood at the table. 2 nights later, I arrived at the Conrad Ballroom in a tailored emerald gown, the same color as Verta's logo. Symbolism matters. Aisha followed behind me, flawless in black, the quiet guardian every empire needs. "You're trending again," she murmured, scrolling through her phone. #Rivera Rising. "Good," I said. "Let them talk." Inside, the air buzzed with champagne laughter and manufactured charm. Cameras flashed. Photographers called out names. When one shouted, "Camila Rivera, over here," heads turned like dominoes. The same people who had pitied me a month ago now wanted a quote, a smile, a headline. I gave them one. Calm, poised, untouchable. Adam saw me before I saw him. It was written in the tension of the room, that almost imperceptible shift when an old ghost reappears in color. He stood near the stage, tuxedo sharp, Kara by his side in silver sequins. She looked like ambition dressed as innocence. He looked like regret pretending not to notice me. I didn't approach. I didn't have to. Power moves toward confidence, not the other way around. Halfway through the evening, as the MC droned about carbon neutrality and innovation metrics, a waiter slipped a folded note onto my table. "Meet me at the bar. 5 minutes. Signed, a friend." Aisha's eyebrow arched. "You sure that's not a trap?" "Only one way to find out." The bar was quieter, lit by low amber lamps and the quiet hum of jazz. Marcus was waiting, the first investor who had believed in me before Adam did. He raised a glass. "Congratulations on Green Edge," he said. "You made a lot of us look smart for betting on you early." "I appreciate that," I said, taking the seat beside him. He leaned closer, voice low. "Adam's been shopping around NDAs, trying to sell what he calls a shared innovation file. It's a copy of your early prototype data. My pulse quickened. How did you find out? Someone at the table tonight bragged about previewing it. A potential buyer from Berlin. You need to shut this down fast, Camilla. He's desperate. Desperation. Adam's most dangerous state. I thanked Marcus and left my drink untouched. As I moved back toward the ballroom, the scent of vanilla and champagne mixed with the electric hum of whispered deals. Kara's laugh cut through the air. Bright. Brittle. Adam stood beside her, pretending to be amused, but his eyes flicked toward me with the sharpness of someone calculating losses. The MC called my name for a panel announcement. Please welcome Camila Rivera, founder and CEO of Verda Technologies, recipient of this year's Innovation in Sustainability Award. Applause thundered. I rose slowly, every step deliberate. The spotlight found me. Warm, blinding, purifying. When I reached the podium, I scanned the crowd and locked eyes with Adam. He looked smaller under the light, like a photograph beginning to fade. My company was built on the idea, I began, that waste can become worth, that what others discard might just be the foundation for something extraordinary. I paused. Sometimes that's material. Sometimes it's people. A murmur rippled through the audience, the kind that comes when truth walks in dressed as poetry. I smiled. Verda stands for growth, renewal, accountability, and as of tonight, I'm proud to announce our global expansion, independently funded and fully woman-led. Applause again. Flashbulbs. I caught Adam's jaw tightening, Kara whispering something frantically. Their discomfort was the applause I didn't need to hear. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed. Camilla, what does independence mean for Verda? One asked. It means authenticity, I replied, and proof that integrity scales faster than ego. When the crowd finally thinned, Adam approached. No cameras this time, just us amid the hum of clinking glasses. You didn't have to humiliate me, he said quietly. Humiliation requires power over someone, I replied. You lost that the moment you underestimated me. He exhaled, glancing toward Kara, who was pretending not to watch. Look, about the files. Already handled, I said, cutting him off. My legal team filed an injunction this afternoon. Every tech firm that touches my code without permission gets blacklisted. His expression faltered. You can't keep this up forever. Watch me. I turned away, but he grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but enough to trigger the memory of every time I dimmed myself to keep the peace. I met his gaze until he let go. This isn't who you are, he whispered. No, I said softly. This is who I've always been. You just never bothered to see her. I left him standing there, the music swelling as I moved through the ballroom toward the exit. The air outside was crisp, clean, alive with the sound of cabs and wind and possibility. Aisha joined me on the steps. You okay? Better than okay, I said. He's panicking. That means we're close. Close to what? She asked. To the part where I stop reacting, I said, watching the skyline glow, and start rewriting. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I opened an email from Forbes confirming the feature shoot. The subject line read, Cover confirmation. Camila Rivera, the woman who outgrew her doubters. I stared at it until my eyes blurred. Somewhere across town, Adam was probably realizing that every document, every file, every ounce of leverage he thought he had was slipping through his fingers. He had tried to define me through partnership, through dependency, through control. And now, the only definition that mattered was mine, written in contracts, headlines, and the quiet certainty that I no longer needed anyone's permission to exist loudly. Outside, the city lights looked like a constellation rearranging itself, old stars fading, new ones burning brighter, and for the first time, I felt it completely, the shift from surviving to leading. If you've ever thought the storm was over, only to feel another wave rise beneath your feet, you'll understand this part. Success doesn't end a war, it just changes the battlefield. The morning after the gala, the world felt like it was holding its breath. My phone pinged non-stop with congratulations, new investment offers, and journalists wanting follow-ups about the speech that had shaken the sustainability scene. The stock value of Verda's holding company had climbed 17% overnight. To everyone else, it looked like victory, but I'd lived long enough to know that every peak casts a shadow. At 7 a.m., Aisha called. No greeting, just tension. Camilla, check your email right now. You're trending, but not the good kind. I opened the link she sent. Verda Leak was climbing across X and LinkedIn. Dozens of screenshots claiming Verda's algorithm wasn't original, that it had been inspired by open-source models from 5 years earlier. The posts came from anonymous accounts, all time-stamped within minutes of each other, perfectly timed to undermine the momentum I'd built. My stomach turned cold, Adam's signature all over it. Within an hour, TechBeat posted a speculative article. Did Camila Rivera's Green Edge deal rely on borrowed code? The irony was almost poetic, Adam accusing me of theft using files he had stolen from me. I called Clara, my lawyer, before the coffee even finished brewing. She sounded unfazed. "We saw it coming," she said. "We'll issue a takedown request, but we'll also need to go proactive. You have documentation? Every commit, every patent registration," I said, opening the encrypted folder labeled proof. The timestamps, the prototype logs, the metadata, all immaculate. "And I know exactly who seeded this." "Good," Clara said. "Then we bury him with facts, not fury." Still, fury burned hot. By 10, Green Edge's legal counsel was on a video call. Richard Hahn's face filled the screen. Calm, analytical. "Camilla, we're still with you," he said. "But we need transparency. Can you send your verification files before this escalates? I'll have them within the hour," I said. "And Richard, thank you for not blinking. Founders who fight back impress us more than founders who panic," he replied. After the call, I turned to Aisha, who'd been pacing with her laptop. "They're trying to flood the algorithm forums," she said. "Someone's paying for bot traffic." "Then we respond with something bots can't fake," I said. "Truth and narrative." We drafted a public statement. Factual, unemotional. Verda's algorithm is fully proprietary, protected under U.S. and international patent law. Any insinuation otherwise is defamatory. Then I added one final line myself. Authenticity doesn't need approval. It leaves receipts. At noon, we posted it across every platform. Within minutes, my DMs exploded again, this time with support. Prominent founders, engineers, even sustainability advocates echoed the post. And just like that, the tide turned. But the real war wasn't online. It was happening in whispers. That evening, Marcus texted me. "Need to talk. Private. Urgent." We met in a corner booth at a downtown restaurant where the lighting was dim enough to hide bad news. He looked tired. "Camilla, I did some digging. Those anonymous accounts posting the leaks. They're registered through a digital marketing agency in Brooklyn. Guess who their biggest client is?" I already knew. "Kara." Marcus nodded. "But here's the twist. She didn't pay for the smear. Adam did. Through a shell account under his old architecture firm. The air around me felt suddenly thinner. He's risking his career for this. He's already lost it," Marcus said quietly. "Word in investor circles is he's blacklisted. Kara's startup's on the verge of collapse. They're cornered. Desperation again. The same pattern. The same man. Let them spin," I said finally. "The truth will outlast the noise." Still, something gnawed at me. "Marcus, be honest. Would Green Edge pull out if this mess lingers?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "They like you too much, but they want to see if you can handle pressure. This is your crucible." When he left, I sat staring at the untouched food on my plate. Across the restaurant, laughter spilled from a table of young founders, bright, confident, oblivious to how fast faith turns to doubt in this world. I'd once been them. Back at my apartment, the city hummed like a live wire. I opened my laptop and began scrolling through Adam's old emails, looking for patterns, for anything that could prove how far he'd planned this. That's when I found it. A message from 8 months ago, buried in an archived folder. Subject, licensing proposal. Confidential. Cam, Kara's startup could use a foundation like Verda's algorithm. I could position it as a collaboration. You'd get visibility. She'd get structure. Win-win. The date was long before the rooftop mixer. Before the affair. Before the betrayal had even worn its mask. He'd been laying groundwork for my replacement the entire time. I felt something cold harden in me. Not sadness, not even anger. Something cleaner, like resolve purified by fire. I forwarded the email to Clara with the note. "Add this to evidence file. We'll need it for the defamation suit." Then I opened another folder titled Press Contacts. It was time for my version of exposure. At 9 p.m., and I sent an embargoed statement to Techline Daily and Forbes. Verda will release an open-source transparency report detailing its code history, financial audits, and environmental impact metrics, because the only thing stronger than innovation is integrity. Within an hour, my phone buzzed nonstop. Comments, shares, applause. Even Green Edge's official account reposted it with the caption, "Leadership by example." And somewhere out there, Adam must have realized what I had done, turned his weapon into my spotlight. Just past midnight, another email arrived, from Kara. Short, frantic, "Please call me. You don't know what he's capable of." I stared at it for a long time, the city lights flickering across my screen. Maybe this wasn't just professional sabotage anymore. Maybe the man I once trusted was unraveling into something darker. And if that was true, then the next move wouldn't just decide Verda's future. It would decide my safety. If you've ever had your enemy reach out in panic, you know that moment when triumph and fear coexist in the same heartbeat. The message from Kara sat open on my screen, her words trembling in digital ink. "You don't know what he's capable of." For 10 minutes, I just stared at it, the cursor blinking like a pulse. Outside, the city was a scatter of gold reflections, and somewhere inside that skyline, Adam Blake was unraveling. I finally called the number attached to her email. It rang twice before a voice answered, shaky, rushed. "Camilla?" "Kara." A breath caught on the other end. "Thank God. I didn't think you'd call." "I almost didn't," I said. "You've made my life hell for months. Why now?" She exhaled, the sound half sob, half confession. "Because he's losing control. After you filed the injunction, Adam started drinking. Then he blamed me, said I ruined his career, said I made him look stupid. He's been obsessing over you, your press, your success. He's convinced you're trying to destroy him." "He destroyed himself," I said quietly. "I know, but he's not thinking rationally. He's talking about getting revenge before you take everything." The word landed like a cold knife between my ribs. "Did he say what that means?" "No. But he's been calling journalists, investors, anyone who'll listen, saying you stole money from Verda." I tried to stop him. He threw a glass at the wall. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, she didn't sound like the woman who'd smirked beside him at that rooftop party. She sounded like someone trapped in the same web I'd escaped. "Where are you now?" I asked. "At his apartment. I'm leaving tonight. I just thought you should know before it gets worse." I hesitated. "Kara, listen to me. You're not safe if he's this volatile. Book a hotel. I'll have my lawyer send you a written statement clearing you from any legal retaliation if you cooperate." She sniffled. "Why would you help me?" "Because I've been you," I said, "and I know what it costs." When the call ended, I sat back, the phone heavy in my hand. The victory I'd fought for suddenly felt fragile, as if one unhinged man could pull down the scaffolding I'd built brick by brick. But fear wasn't going to reclaim me, not after I'd learned to weaponize truth. I called Clara next. "We may have a personal security issue," I said. "I need documentation of everything, restraining order ready, evidence secured." She didn't flinch. "Already ahead of you. I'll send a security consultant to your office in the morning." The next day, the consultant arrived. Ex-military, calm eyes, methodical. He installed discrete cameras in my apartment and office, changed passwords, and traced recent login attempts on my cloud accounts. "Someone tried accessing your Verda server from a private network last night," he said. "Brooklyn area." "Adam," I muttered. He nodded, not asking questions. "If he tries again, we'll have the logs." By afternoon, my building's doorman called. "Ms. Rivera, there's a man here asking to leave a package for you. Says it's personal." "Describe him." "Tall, mid-40s, brown hair, expensive coat, but agitated. Tell him I don't accept unverified deliveries. He's already leaving," the doorman said. "Toss the package in the trash can outside." My heart thudded as I grabbed my keys and hurried downstairs. The small black box sat inside the bin, wrapped in gold paper, no label. I used a napkin to lift it and opened it carefully. Inside was my old wedding ring, bent, the diamond cracked straight through the center. There was a note beneath it, written in Adam's hand. "You'll regret this, Camilla." That night, I barely slept. My penthouse, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage under surveillance. Every sound carried weight, the hum of the refrigerator, the whine of the elevator, the distant sirens. Still, fear was an old visitor. I knew how to host it without letting it move in. At sunrise, Aisha texted me, "You okay?" I sent her a picture of the ring and the note. Her response came fast. "We call the police." "Already did," I replied. But even as I said it, I knew Adam wouldn't be arrested for leaving a note. He'd always operated in gray zones, psychological warfare, plausible deniability. By noon, the story shifted again. A journalist from TechBeat, The same one who'd run the VertiLeak piece called me directly. "Camilla, off record. Did you know your ex is pitching a tell-all interview? Claims he built the foundation of Verta, and that you're trying to silence him." I almost laughed. Of course he is. The last act of every man who loses power is to rewrite history. The journalist hesitated. Between us, everyone knows it's garbage. But he showed a few personal photos, some financial statements, private ones. You might want to get ahead of this. Private. My pulse spiked. There was only one place those files could have come from. Our old shared drive, the one I'd locked down months ago. That evening, I met Aisha and Clara in my office. "We'll need to file a privacy violation suit," Clara said. "But first, PR containment. The best defense is visibility. If you hide, it looks like guilt. So we go public," I said. Again, Aisha smiled grimly. "At this rate, you're going to own every headline in New York." We scheduled an emergency press conference for the following afternoon. But that night, as I walked home under the city lights, I realized how little of this was about business anymore. This was psychological excavation, the process of digging out every piece of myself he'd once claimed. When I reached my building, my security consultant was waiting. "We traced the Brooklyn IP," he said quietly. "You'll want to see this." He handed me a photo, grainy surveillance footage, Adam at a cafe, laptop open, Kara sitting across from him, crying. The timestamp was from 2 hours before her call. My stomach twisted. You don't know what he's capable of. She wasn't just warning me about temper. She was warning me about timing, because if that footage was real, Kara might not have made it out. I picked up my phone, dialing her number again, straight to voicemail, then again. Still nothing. The city hummed below me, indifferent as ever, but I felt it. Something about this war had shifted. It wasn't just about reputation anymore. It was survival. If you've ever watched the world move like nothing happened while you knew something had gone horribly wrong, then you know the silence that followed Kara's last call. It wasn't just absence. It was the sound of a thread snapping. I called her number 5 more times that night, each one rolling into voicemail. The next morning, I asked Aisha to try from her phone, thinking maybe Kara had blocked me out of shame or fear. Same result. Her social accounts just went dark, Aisha said, eyes scanning her screen. No new stories, no posts. Even her LinkedIn vanished. People don't erase themselves that fast, I said. That afternoon, I met with Clara and the security consultant. He laid down a folder of printed images, still frames from the Brooklyn cafe. Kara and Adam sat at a small corner table, body language tense. The next frame showed her leaving first, clutching her phone. The final image, time-stamped 8 minutes later, showed Adam alone, staring into space like a man watching a bridge burn. She hasn't used her credit card since that night, the consultant said. Her phone last pinged from a cell tower in Red Hook around 11 p.m. after the cafe. Nothing since. Clara's expression hardened. "We need to contact the police." I hesitated. Reporting Adam meant dragging myself back into a public spectacle I'd fought to escape. Another headline. Another round of questions about my connection to him. But then I remembered the sound of Kara's voice, thin and shaking. "You don't know what he's capable of. Do it," I said. "Now." The police came by my office that evening. A detective named Ortiz and her partner, Chen. They listened carefully as I described the timeline. The threatening note, the ring, Kara's call. Ortiz took notes, her pen moving fast. "We'll issue a missing person alert," she said. "But you know how it goes. The first 48 hours matter." "I know," I said quietly. That night, I walked home through Soho, the city still glowing with early spring lights. Every shadow felt heavier than usual, every passing stranger a question mark. At home, I poured myself a glass of red wine and opened my laptop, scrolling through every old email between Adam and me. I needed patterns, habits, something that might predict his next move. He had always been methodical. He'd map out conversations before they happened, practice charm like a language, but under stress, he got sloppy, emotional, impulsive. At 2 a.m., my phone vibrated with an unknown number. I answered before reason could stop me. "Camilla," the voice said. Hoarse. Male. "Adam." A pause. Then a low laugh. "You think you can ruin me and just walk away? You did that yourself. She's gone," he said. "You did this. You made her leave." My hand tightened around the phone. "What are you talking about?" "She left me. Took my car, my laptop. Said she couldn't live like this. You drove her away with your lawsuits and your lies. You drove her away with your violence. I snapped. The line went silent for a moment. Then he whispered, almost tenderly, "You've changed, Camilla. I used to love how calm you were. Now you sound just like me." The line went dead. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Somewhere between the fear and the fury, I realized something chilling. If Kara was truly missing, Adam might try to frame me. The man who once gaslit me into believing my ambition was arrogance would have no problem painting me as a vindictive woman out for revenge. By morning, the tabloids were already feasting. Ex of tech founder missing amid scandal, read one headline. Camila Rivera's former husband under scrutiny, read another. But nestled among the noise was something worse. A gossip blog insinuating I'd threatened Kara over intellectual property theft. I slammed my laptop shut and called Clara. "He's playing me," I said. "He's setting me up." Clara's voice stayed steady. "Then we get ahead of it again. We go to the police with what you have. Recordings, messages, proof that she called you. And we make it public that you're cooperating." 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Detective Ortiz again, sliding my phone across the table. "This is the call," I said. She was afraid of him. Ortiz listened, eyes narrowing. "We've pulled security footage from his building. He came home around midnight that night alone, but his car was gone for 2 days. We're tracing it now." Her tone softened. "Ms. Rivera, I don't think this ends with a simple domestic report." Back at Verda, Aisha had turned the office into a command center. News feeds on one screen, social analytics on another. "People are taking your side," she said, scrolling through thousands of supportive comments. "Even his old investors are stepping back. He's poison now. Poison spreads," I said. That evening, Marcus called. "Camilla, I heard about the disappearance. Look, if you need to go quiet, I can move money, protect assets, whatever." "No," I said firmly. "If I go silent, he wins. He thrives in darkness. I'll fight him in daylight." And that's exactly what I did. The next morning, I walked into a press conference in front of 30 reporters and half a dozen cameras. My PR manager looked pale. "You're sure about this?" "Absolutely." I stepped up to the podium, the microphones forming a small forest between me and the world. "Many of you know about the ongoing investigation regarding my ex-husband, Adam Blake, and his partner Kara." I paused, letting the flashes die down. Kara reached out to me before she disappeared. She was scared. I gave her legal protection and urged her to leave safely. That's on record. The room buzzed with murmurs. "I'm cooperating fully with the investigation," I continued. "But understand this. Verda's mission won't be derailed by lies, nor will I. Women in business face enough obstacles without being dragged through the mud by the men who can't handle our success." Applause rippled across the room, soft but growing. That night, after the conference aired, I sat alone by the window, watching New York glow beneath me. The ring Adam had left, still bent and broken, sat on my desk under the lamplight, a relic of something that no longer had power. My phone buzzed once more. A new message. No name. No number. "He's not done. Be careful." For a long time I didn't move. Then I locked my doors, shut my laptop, and whispered to the quiet room, "I'm not done either." If you've ever had to keep working while the ground beneath you kept shifting, you understand how I lived that month. One hand signing contracts, the other bracing for collapse. Publicly, I was the face of calm. Privately, I was counting shadows. The police investigation into Kara's disappearance had taken on its own momentum. Her car was found abandoned near the Red Hook docks. A black Tesla, battery dead, passenger seat streaked with spilled coffee. No signs of struggle, but her purse, laptop, and phone were gone. Detective Ortiz briefed me over the phone every few days, her tone measured. "We can't confirm foul play yet," she'd say, "but we're not ruling it out." The media, of course, had already decided. "Tech founder's ex-husband questioned in missing person case." The headline played on every news site. Adam hadn't been charged, but his name was radioactive. His firm severed ties. Sponsors withdrew from his mentorship programs. The empire he'd built on charm and borrowed confidence was collapsing, brick by brick. And yet, I didn't feel safe, because collapse doesn't make a man harmless. It makes him unpredictable. At Verda, we doubled down on security. Cameras at every entry, digital firewalls upgraded twice over. Aisha had started sleeping in the office some nights, too afraid to leave me alone during late work sessions. The team followed my lead, acting normal, producing record numbers despite the chaos swirling around us. Maybe fear can sharpen focus, or maybe resilience is its own kind of rebellion. One Thursday, I was leaving a meeting when my driver, Luis, handed me an envelope. Someone dropped this off at reception. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Kyra, standing on a pier, the night skyline blurred behind her. Written across the bottom in black marker were 3 words: "She's still watching." Luis saw my face, pale. "You okay, Miss Rivera?" "Drive," I said. "And don't stop." At home, I placed the photo on my kitchen counter and stared at it under the light. It wasn't fear I felt. It was calculation. The timestamp in the corner read 11:14 p.m., the night after the cafe meeting. The Red Hook docks. She'd been alive then. I called Detective Ortiz. She came within an hour. "Where did this come from?" she asked, snapping photos with her phone. "Reception. No one saw who left it. Could be a warning," she said. "Could be bait. From Adam? Or from Kara herself," Ortiz replied. "Maybe she's in hiding." That possibility hung in the air. It was the first thread of hope I'd allowed myself to feel. The next morning, I had coffee with Marcus. He slid a newspaper toward me. "You're on the front page again. Forbes moved up your feature. They're calling you the Phoenix of fashion tech." "Great," I muttered. "Maybe it'll distract people from the missing person case attached to my name." Marcus frowned. "You can't control the narrative forever, but you can finish it. If Kara's alive, she's the key to ending this." Later that afternoon, my assistant buzzed me. "A delivery for you, hand-delivered." "Who signed for it?" "No one. It was left by the door." The package was a plain manila envelope. Inside, a USB drive, unmarked. My security consultant scanned it on a separate machine. After a minute, he said, "It's safe. Video file only." I pressed play. Grainy footage filled the screen. Security camera angle, time-stamped from the night of Kara's disappearance. It showed a car pulling up near the docks, headlights cutting through fog. A woman stepped out. Kara. Then a man followed. The camera was too far to show faces, but I'd know that posture anywhere. Adam. They argued. Gestures sharp, desperate. He grabbed her arm. She shoved him away. Then the screen flickered, static swallowing the final seconds. My stomach dropped. Where did this come from? "No metadata. Whoever sent it stripped everything," the consultant said. "But it's real." I leaned back in my chair, a chill running down my spine. Kara had been right. He was capable of anything. Clara filed an emergency protective order that evening. We attached the video and the threatening note to the ongoing investigation. Ortiz promised an arrest warrant was a matter of time. But time, I'd learned, moves differently when danger breathes your name. That night, sleep wouldn't come. The city pulsed beneath my window. Sirens, laughter, the hum of a life that refused to slow down. I poured myself another coffee at 2 a.m. and opened my laptop, staring at the news feeds. My story was trending again. Justice for Kara, gaining traction. People demanded accountability. Others accused me of orchestrating everything for attention. There was a knock at my door. I froze. The security cameras showed a shadowed figure in the hallway, tall, still. The intercom crackled. "Camilla," a voice said. Low, familiar. "It's me. We need to talk." "Adam." My pulse hammered. I didn't answer. He spoke again, tone trembling between anger and plea. "They're saying things. Lies. You know me. You know I'd never—" I hit the panic button on my phone. 30 seconds later, my building's alarms blared. Adam flinched, turned, and disappeared down the hall. When the security team arrived, he was gone. But he'd left something wedged under the door. Another note. "You have no idea what you started." By morning, the police confirmed he'd violated a no-contact order. An arrest warrant was imminent. For a few hours, I let myself breathe. That afternoon, Ortiz called again. We found something else. Kara's phone was turned on briefly this morning, used near the Lincoln Tunnel. One outgoing call. "To your office." I checked my call logs. Nothing. "Maybe it was rerouted," Ortiz said. "Or maybe she was trying to reach you another way." After the call ended, I sat there, the city stretching endlessly beyond my windows. The fear I'd carried for months settled into something quieter, more dangerous. Focus. If Kara was alive, she was running. From him, maybe from both of us. But she was trying to tell me something, and I would find her, before Adam found me first. There are moments when the past stops being memory and becomes something physical. A knock, a voice, a shadow that forces itself into the room. That morning, My ghost came back wearing Kara's perfume. It was 6:47 a.m. when my phone vibrated with an encrypted message. Meet me. Alone. Don't tell the police. K attached was a photo of the fountain in Bryant Park, time-stamped 5 minutes earlier. My breath hitched. If it was really Kara, she was alive. And close. If it wasn't, I was walking into a trap. I dressed carefully, not like a woman running from danger, but like one confronting it. Dark jeans, trench coat, sneakers. I left my phone tracker on and texted Aisha one word: park. Then I walked out into a city just waking up, the early light slicing through skyscraper canyons like revelation. Bryant Park at dawn was almost peaceful. Dog walkers, commuters, the smell of coffee and damp earth. I scanned the benches until I saw her. Kara, hood up, sunglasses on, clutching a paper cup like it was the only thing anchoring her to the world. When she looked up, I barely recognized her. The glossy PR girl was gone. This version was hollowed out, haunted. You're alive, I said. For now, she whispered. Sit. I did. We stared at each other for a long moment. The police think you're missing, I said. People think he didn't. She cut in, voice trembling. Not yet. Her hands shook as she set the cup down. After the fight at the cafe, I left him. I took his car and drove to Red Hook. He followed, said he just wanted to talk. Then he snapped, screamed that I'd betrayed him. I ran toward the docks and hid behind a storage container. He left. I thought he'd calm down. But when I went back for my things the next day, my apartment had been ransacked. My laptop gone, clothes shredded. There was a note on the mirror. What did it say? She looked at me, eyes glassy. Same words he sent you. You'll regret this. A wind gust lifted her hair, and I caught the faint smell of sea salt and fear. Why contact me? I asked. Because you're the only person who knows what he's like when he's cornered. And because you have something he wants. My company. She nodded. And something else. Proof he can't destroy you without destroying himself. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small flash drive wrapped in tissue. I copied his backup files before I ran. Emails, transactions, messages with journalists, everything. He's been paying people to fabricate stories, bribing data engineers to find fake code similarities. And there's more. He laundered investor money through his mentorship fund. Millions. I felt my pulse roar in my ears. Kara, this could end him. That's why you have to take it, she said, pushing the drive toward me. I can't hold it anymore. He'll find me if I stay. I'm leaving the country tonight. Where will you go? Somewhere he can't reach. Thailand, maybe. I have a cousin there. Just promise me you'll use this. I hesitated, glancing around the park. The police need this evidence. She shook her head violently. No police. If he goes down, he'll drag everyone with him. Investors, partners. He'll torch it all. You need to be strategic. You're good at that. Her voice cracked on the last word. I was never built for war, Camilla. You were. Before I could answer, she stood and walked away, merging into the blur of commuters. I wanted to call her name, but something in me knew that if I did, she wouldn't turn around. Back at my apartment, I stared at the flash drive on the table. Every instinct told me to hand it to Ortiz. Every strategist bone in my body said to verify first. So I plugged it into an isolated laptop, the same one I used for prototypes. Folder after folder appeared. PDFs, screenshots, voice memos. The first was an email thread between Adam and a journalist. Leak the financial discrepancies next week. I'll pay you double for exclusivity. Make Rivera look unstable, obsessive. The next file was worse. Internal messages between Adam and Kara from months ago. He'd convinced her to infiltrate Verda's systems under the guise of collaboration, collecting data while pretending to help me streamline operations. Her remorse must have come later. I scrolled further. Bank records showing transfers to shell companies, invoices for consulting fees that never existed. It was enough to bury him 10 times over. But the final file stopped me cold. A folder labeled Rivera, private. Inside, photos of me, all recent. Leaving my office, sitting in cafes. One, taken through the window of my apartment. The timestamp was from 3 nights ago. I slammed the laptop shut, my skin crawling. He wasn't just following me online. He was watching me. Clara came over within the hour. She scanned the files, face tightening. This is everything we need, she said. We can take this straight to the DA. With this level of financial fraud, he won't see daylight again. Do it, I said. but part of me hesitated. Kara's warning echoed in my head. If he goes down, he'll drag everyone with him. That evening, Ortiz called. "We have a development," she said. A witness saw Adam's car near the Lincoln Tunnel the morning Kara's phone pinged there. "He's officially a person of interest. We're bringing him in." I looked at the flash drive on the counter, gleaming under the kitchen light like a loaded weapon. "Detective," I said slowly, "if I gave you something that proved motive, finances, everything, would it hold up in court?" "It depends," Ortiz replied. "Where did you get it?" I stared out at the skyline, the city stretching like a web of consequences. "Let's just say it came from someone who finally stopped being afraid," she exhaled. "Then bring it in. We'll handle the rest." But as I hung up, another message flashed on my screen. No sender, no number, just one line. "She's not gone. Don't trust them." My breath caught. Kara? Or him pretending to be her? Either way, the ghost had returned, and this time it was speaking directly from the shadows. If you've ever been certain the worst was over, and then felt the ground open again, you'll understand the kind of dread that arrived with that message. "She's not gone. Don't trust them." 5 words that hollowed the air around me. I reread it twice. No sender ID, no IP trail. My security consultant confirmed it came from a virtual number routed through multiple countries. Either Kara had become a ghost with a tech team, or Adam was laying the perfect snare. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dim glow of my living room, the flash drive sitting on the table like a live explosive. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the crack of pipes, felt amplified. When dawn came, the city felt brittle, like one wrong move could shatter it. At 7:12 a.m., my intercom buzzed. "Ms. Rivera, a courier's here for a signature." "I didn't order anything," I said. "He says it's from the district attorney's office." The package was a thick envelope, official-looking, sealed with a red tag, but something about the label felt off. My consultant ran a quick verification. "The DA doesn't use this courier service," he said. We opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Bring the drive to Pier 39 tonight at 10. Come alone, or the truth dies with me." It was printed, not handwritten, but the phrasing, the deliberate calm, sounded exactly like Kara. My heart slammed against my ribs. If she was alive, she was either desperate or being used as bait. I called Clara. "What if it's a setup? Then it's the kind that reveals who's pulling the strings," she said. "But you won't go alone. We'll coordinate with Ortiz. Hidden surveillance, backup teams." "No," I said. "If Adam suspects police involvement, he'll vanish. I'll go, but with my own precautions." That evening, I met Aisha in my office. She looked terrified. "Camilla, this is insane." "So was trusting him," I said. "This time I control the narrative." I wore dark clothes, wired my bag with a miniature GPS tracker that transmitted to both my consultant and Aisha's phone. The flash drive, still sealed, sat in a small metal case. As I stepped into the cab, I felt strangely calm. Fear had burned itself out, leaving only focus. Pier 39 was quiet by nightfall. The air smelled of salt and diesel, and the only sounds were the creak of boats and the slap of water against concrete. The streetlights flickered, casting fractured halos over the fog. At 9:58, I saw a silhouette near the far end of the pier, a woman in a hoodie. My pulse kicked. "Kara?" She turned. Even through the fog, I recognized her posture, the same hunch of someone carrying too much, but her face stayed hidden. "You came alone," she said. Her voice was hoarse, thin. "Because you told me to," I said. "But you owe me the truth. Why the messages? Why vanish?" "I had to disappear. He has people watching. I couldn't go to the police. He'd destroy everything. The files, did you open them?" "Yes," I said. "And I'm giving them to the authorities." "No," she cried, stepping closer. "You can't. They'll bury it. He's been paying inside contacts. The case won't survive the week." I studied her. Something was off. Her hands were trembling, but not with fear, more like restraint. "Where have you been hiding?" She hesitated too long. "Upstate," she said. "A friend's place." "Funny," I said, "because your last signal was from Midtown yesterday. And that message, don't trust them. You sent it from a burner registered under Adam's old firm." Her breath caught. "You're not Kara," I said. The silence cracked, followed by the faint click of a gun being cocked. "You always were the smart one," she said, voice deepening, words flattening into cold mimicry. The hood came off. Adam. He looked gaunt, sleepless. The sharp edge of his once practiced charm replaced by something raw and jagged. "I didn't want it to end like this, Cam," he said softly, "but you left me no choice. You faked her voice. She helped me once. I learned her tone, her syntax. It's all pattern recognition, right? You of all people should appreciate algorithms." He took a step closer, the gun steady now. "Give me the drive. You'll go to prison." He smiled, the expression broken. "I'll go to Singapore first. You'll just disappear." Before I could answer, headlights flared behind us. A black SUV screeched to a stop. Doors flew open. Aisha and the consultant spilled out, followed by Detective Ortiz. "Drop it, Adam," Ortiz shouted. For a second, everything froze. The water slapped against the dock, the air thick with diesel and adrenaline. Then Adam spun, pointing the gun toward Ortiz. The crack of the shot split the night. The bullet hit the wooden post beside me, splintering it. Ortiz fired back. Adam staggered, clutching his arm, the gun clattering into the water. The sound echoed, final and hollow. Officers swarmed. Ortiz cuffed him herself, reading his rights while he muttered incoherently about betrayal and genius, and how none of it was supposed to end like this. As they dragged him away, I caught his eye one last time. There was no anger there anymore, just the shock of a man who'd finally met the consequence he'd never believed in. Ortiz turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded, though my body was trembling. "Where's Kara?" "We'll find her," Ortiz said. "But tonight we found him. That's a start." Later, in my apartment, the city lights looked different. Softer, slower, like the world had exhaled. The flash drive sat beside me, evidence and closure contained in one fragile piece of metal. I opened my phone to hundreds of messages, press, investors, supporters, but one stood out. Unknown number. Just 3 words. "Thank you. K." I stared at it until my eyes blurred. Maybe she'd escaped. Maybe she was watching from somewhere far away, free at last. For the first time in months, I shut my phone off completely. I sat in the quiet, watching dawn creep through the glass. The war was over. At least that's what I thought. Because in the reflection of my window, faint but unmistakable, a red light blinked from across the street, aimed directly at my apartment. A camera lens. If you've ever thought you'd reach the end of your story only to realize you're standing at the midpoint of a deeper one, then you'll understand what that blinking red light did to me. After everything, the lawsuits, the betrayal, the peer, I should have felt safe. But safety, I was learning, is just the space between battles. The light pulsed steadily from the building opposite mine, faint but deliberate, a red dot, the size of a pinhead, reflecting on the glass near my balcony. Aisha was asleep in the guest room, and I didn't want to wake her yet, so I stood there in the dark, every sense on edge, counting the flashes. 1 every 3 seconds. Too slow for an alarm, too consistent for a coincidence. By 3 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I called my security consultant, Jake. He answered on the first ring, voice alert, even at that hour. "Talk to me," he said. "There's a red light on the building across from mine. Looks like a camera." He paused. "Which side?" "East. 4 floors down. Second window." "I'm on my way," he said. He arrived 20 minutes later, armed with a thermal scope and a drone kit. We turned off all lights, stood near the window like shadows. He lifted the scope, adjusted the lens, then cursed softly. "You weren't imagining it. There's a camera rig facing directly into your unit. Professional grade. Long-range zoom. Motion sensitive. Who the hell is still watching me?" Jake lowered the scope. "Could be media. Could be Adam's associates. Could be someone who wants what's on that flash drive." The flash drive. The one still locked in my desk drawer, containing enough evidence to put Adam away for years. We spent the next hour documenting everything. Angles, timestamps, photos from Jake's drone. When the first hint of dawn touched the skyline, he turned to me. "We'll trace the building's tenants today. Whoever installed that camera had access to that floor." Aisha stumbled out of the guest room around 7, hair messy, eyes wide when I told her. "Camilla, I swear if one more person spies on you, I'm quitting humanity." "Get in line," I said. Later that morning, Clara called with updates. Adam's in custody, no bail. They're charging him with fraud, attempted extortion, and weapons violations. But his lawyer's already pushing a narrative that he was provoked. They're painting you as a manipulative ex who destroyed him publicly. I laughed. Sharp, bitter. Of course they are. He's claiming you orchestrated the pier incident to silence him. Says you hired security to stage it. Does he have any proof? No, but the tabloids don't need proof. They just need quotes. By noon, the first stories appeared online. Rivera versus Blake. Was the pier showdown staged? Accompanied by photos of me leaving the police station. The comments were a battlefield. Half the public defending me, the other half dissecting me. Jake returned in the afternoon, face grim. The apartment across from you? It's leased under a shell company. Guess who signed the lease before he was arrested? My stomach dropped. Adam, he nodded. The lease went active 3 weeks ago. He must have set it up before the pier, maybe even before the injunction. He was watching me that long. Longer, Jake said. We found older recordings. The camera's been operational for at least 6 months. My mind reeled through memories. Moments in my apartment I'd thought were private. Late-night calls, breakdowns. The quiet hours when I'd rebuilt myself piece by piece. All of it. Recorded. Take it down, I said. Already did, Jake replied. But we keep the footage as evidence. It'll strengthen the stalking charges. That night, I met with Detective Ortiz again. She'd aged in the weeks since the case began. Dark circles, exhaustion, empathy barely hidden under professionalism. We searched Adam's devices, she said. He had hundreds of hours of footage from that camera. He'd been monitoring you remotely. We also found communications with an unidentified third party. Someone supplying him with your schedules, meetings, travel plans. Someone inside Verda? Possibly. Or someone close to your circle. The betrayal that had started as personal was now metastasizing into something institutional. A leak inside my own company. I returned to the office the next morning with a knot in my stomach. Verda's glass walls gleamed under the early light. Innocent as ever. My team greeted me with forced smiles. I could feel it. The curiosity, the fear, the whispered theories. Aisha followed me into my office. You think it's someone here? I think someone's been feeding him information, I said. And I think they're still here. We ran a quiet audit. Email metadata, security badge swipes, expense reports. By midday, Aisha found the anomaly. You're not going to like this, she said, sliding her tablet across the desk. It was a pattern of data transfers from an employee I'd trusted for years, Jonathan Pierce, head of operations. He'd accessed confidential documents at odd hours, sometimes using VPNs routed through Brooklyn, the same area where Adam's IP traces originated. I felt my throat tighten. Jonathan had been with me since the early days, the one who stayed late to troubleshoot code, who celebrated every Verda milestone like it was his own. Call him in, I said. He entered my office looking nervous but composed, that easy confidence that had always made him popular with the team. Camilla, is something wrong? I turned the tablet toward him. You tell me. His eyes flicked over the data logs, then back to me. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? Consulting, he said quickly. Freelance work. I needed extra income. For who? I pressed. Don't lie to me, Jonathan. His silence was answer enough. You sold our data, I said quietly. He flinched. Adam promised it was temporary. He said he just needed to prove something. He said you wouldn't even notice. I stood, rage radiating cold. You gave him access to my life, my company. You helped him spy on me. He said you ruined him, Jonathan burst out. He said you stole Verda from under him. I didn't know he'd... I held up a hand. Save it. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. When he was gone, Aisha closed the door gently. We're surrounded by ghosts, Camilla, even in daylight. Then we start exorcising them, I said. That evening I went back to the window. The red light was gone now, but its absence was almost worse. Across the street, the empty apartment stared back like an unblinking eye. I thought about all the ways Adam had tried to own me, through love, through control, through surveillance. But standing there, watching the skyline turn gold, I realized something. Every attempt to cage me had only made me more deliberate about freedom. Still, one question lingered. Ortiz had mentioned a third party, a supplier, someone who'd enabled Adam even after his arrest. Whoever they were, they weren't finished. Because at 11:43 p.m., as I was shutting down my laptop, an email appeared from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You think he was the only one watching?" And attached was a single image. Me, standing at my window, staring out into the night, taken just 15 minutes earlier. There's a special kind of terror that comes when you think the monster has been slain, only to realize there was another predator in the dark the whole time. That's what the subject line did to me. You think he was the only one watching? I opened the attached photo again. My own image stared back. Me at the window, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the skyline. The flash drive's reflection faint in the glass. The metadata in the file confirmed the timestamp. 15 minutes earlier. Someone was photographing me in real time. I sent it to Jake with a single line. Find them. Within minutes, he called back. This isn't Adam. He's still in custody. This is someone new. The image was sent from an encrypted server in Iceland. We'll need more time. More time was the one thing I didn't have. The flash drive contained everything. Adam's fraud, his surveillance, his blackmail attempts. If a second player had been quietly feeding him, they might also have access to my files, my movements, my life. At dawn, I met Aisha at the office. She stared at the photo, jaw tight. Someone inside Verda helped Adam, and now they're continuing without him. Jonathan? I asked. Or someone higher. She shook her head. Jonathan was sloppy. This is cleaner. This is someone with training. We combed through logs again, tracing access to secure folders. A pattern emerged. Subtle, clever. Not files being copied, but metadata being skimmed. Timestamps, user activity, project schedules. Whoever it was wasn't stealing code. They were mapping my life. Around noon, Clara called. We've filed new charges. Adam's team is folding. But Camilla, there's chatter about an insurance policy. What kind of policy? Adam bragged he'd left something with a friend. He said if anything happened to him, it would ruin you. We think that's what the second watcher is holding. I went cold. Do you know who? No names yet, but we're digging. By evening, my penthouse felt like a stage again. Light slanting across the hardwood, every sound amplified. The city outside glittered, but to me it looked like a chessboard, pieces in motion. I poured a glass of water and sat at my desk, thinking about every contact Adam had ever introduced me to. Investors, consultants, mentors. Then it hit me. There was one person who'd always been present but invisible. A figure at every event, every meeting, always just helping out. Eleanor, Adam's mother. 7 years of family dinners where she'd scrutinize me like a business plan, asking subtle questions about my work, my finances. She had once been an attorney at a boutique firm that specialized in trust structures and asset shielding. She'd retired to help Adam's mentorship program, right around the time my company began to rise. And she hated me. I opened my encrypted email archive, searched for her name. There it was. A CC on an old memo Jonathan had sent by accident 2 years ago. Financial projections for Verda. She'd replied with a single sentence. Thank you. This is helpful. Jake returned just before midnight with news. We traced the Icelandic server to a VPN used by a consulting firm in Connecticut. Guess who the retainer belongs to? Eleanor Whitmore Blake. My hands clenched into fists. She's been running this the whole time. Jake nodded grimly. We think she's the second watcher. She's been managing Adam's assets, moving money, and now she's monitoring you directly. With Adam locked up, she might be trying to negotiate her own leverage. The email came 5 minutes later. No greeting, no name, just text. You've humiliated my son. You've taken everything he built. Return the drive, and I'll ensure your reputation stays intact. Otherwise, the videos go public. Attached was a still frame from one of Adam's surveillance videos. Me, mid-breakdown, sitting on my kitchen floor months ago, face in my hands. The caption read, "The world loves to see a woman fall." I stared at it, fury flooding through me. They'd tried to shame me privately. Now they were threatening to shame me publicly. But what they didn't understand was that shame only works when you're still playing their game. I called Clara. It's Eleanor. She has the videos. Send me everything, Clara said. We'll move now. We spent the next 2 hours drafting a counterstrike. At 3 a.m., we launched it. A public statement accompanied by select excerpts from the flash drive. Not the personal footage, but the fraud, the shell companies, the bribes. We didn't mention Eleanor by name, but the breadcrumbs were obvious to anyone who knew the players. Within an hour, Techline Daily published a breaking story. Adam Blake's mother implicated in financial conspiracy. By morning, my phone was a battlefield again. Journalists, investors, supporters, trolls. But the tide had shifted. This time the narrative wasn't me versus Adam. It was corruption exposed by a woman who refused to be silent. Aisha watched me from the doorway. You just dropped a bomb. No, I said. I just turned on the lights. At 10 a.m., Ortiz called. We've opened a second investigation. With the evidence you gave us, we can issue warrants for Eleanor's accounts. We're also working on getting the surveillance videos suppressed as illegally obtained. Good, I said. But don't suppress them for me. Suppress them for every woman who's been stalked and recorded without consent. That night, the skyline outside my window felt different. Less like a chessboard, more like an open field. But the blinking red light still haunted my mind. I stepped onto the balcony, the cool air carrying the faint smell of rain. Across the street, the window where the camera had been stood dark, curtains drawn. The predator's perch was empty. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. One line. You've underestimated me too. I stared at it, my reflection in the glass looking back like a stranger. If Eleanor thought I would crumble under exposure, she'd miscalculated, because I had one move left, one I'd saved for the very end. You reach a point in every war when defense becomes exhaustion, and the only thing left is offense. That was where I stood the morning after Eleanor's message, at the thin line between fear and fury, between surviving and finishing what they started. The city below looked deceptively calm. From my balcony, the taxis moved like yellow veins through gray streets, unaware that the next 24 hours would decide whether I could keep Verda, my name, or my sanity. Aisha arrived before sunrise, armed with coffee and bad news. She's speaking to the press, she said, sliding her tablet across my desk. There she was, Eleanor Whitmore Blake, on a live morning show feed, pearls and posture intact, a portrait of composed vengeance. She's claiming you manipulated Adam, Aisha said. She's calling you an unstable entrepreneur with a vendetta. She even brought printed photos, the surveillance footage. I watched as Eleanor addressed the cameras. I'm only trying to protect my family, she said. Camila Rivera weaponized her influence to destroy my son's career. Everything she's saying is a lie. The anchors leaned in like they were tasting blood. My throat went dry, but something inside me hardened. She's making this her legacy, I said. Fine, let's give her one worth remembering. Clara joined us an hour later with the tone of someone who'd been awake all night. She's cornered, Camilla. You don't go on national TV unless you're panicking. But she still has reach. Before we strike, we need absolute precision. I nodded. Then we start with exposure, the kind she can't control. For months, I'd archived everything. Every bank transaction, every shell company document, every conversation Adam and Eleanor had about their mentorship fund, the fund that, in reality, siphoned investor money into offshore accounts. What Eleanor didn't know was that, in her arrogance, she'd copied me on a few innocent emails years ago. My name appeared nowhere near the fraudulent trail, but hers did, every step of the way. We spent the morning cross-referencing files from the flash drive against public business registries. The patterns emerged like bruises. Companies registered in the Caymans, consultancies paid for branding work that never existed. At the bottom of every paper trail was her signature, E. Whitmore Blake. By noon, we had the entire chain assembled. Tight, undeniable. Aisha leaned back, rubbing her temples. So what's the play? We leak it? No, I said. We own it. If we leak, we look like we're retaliating. But if I stand in front of cameras and tell the truth before anyone asks, that's power. Clara hesitated. You'd be taking a risk. This isn't just Adam's mother. It's a woman with political ties. She'll come after you. She already did, I said. Now she gets to watch me build a new narrative over her ashes. The press conference was set for 6 p.m. We chose a small venue, Verda's own event hall, with our logo glowing behind me like a quiet reminder of what this was really about. Reclaiming authorship. 5 minutes before I walked on stage, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, this time with a voicemail. I hit play. Camilla. Eleanor's voice rasped through the speaker, stripped of its media polish. Don't do this. You think you can win by dragging us down, but you don't understand what's at stake. Adam's father had accounts tied to that money. You expose me. You expose him. You'll destroy everything, including yourself. I ended the message without replying. That was the difference between us. She was still protecting the past, and I'd already buried mine. When I stepped onto the stage, the crowd of reporters rose like a tide. Flashes went off, the hum of murmurs filling the air. I didn't wait for silence. Good evening, I began. You've all heard the accusations about my company, my marriage, my so-called instability. Tonight, I'm giving you facts, not speculation. I projected the first document onto the screen. A scanned bank statement. Eleanor's name circled in red. This is the account through which investor funds were diverted from the Blake mentorship program into personal holdings. These are the same accounts that financed media leaks, paid bribes, and funded illegal surveillance operations against me. Another click, another document, an email chain between Eleanor and a financial advisor, discussing damage control if Adam's behavior led to public exposure. These are her words, not mine, I said. We'll make her look hysterical. People never believe hysterical women. A collective gasp rippled through the room. I let the silence stretch. For months I've been painted as a woman unraveling. But I didn't unravel. I recorded. I documented. I survived. Reporters shouted questions. But I raised my hand for quiet. Verda will continue its mission. We'll release all our transparency reports publicly. The truth isn't a liability. It's a business model. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then thunderous. I left the stage before anyone could ask about Eleanor's next move. Outside, rain had begun to fall. Soft at first, then heavy, cleansing. Aisha caught up with me under the awning, breathless. You did it. She's trending. For all the wrong reasons. Good, I said, but I knew better than to celebrate. People like Eleanor didn't crumble quietly. They detonated. I was halfway home when Jake called. Camilla, listen. I just intercepted a data transfer from Eleanor's firm. She's dumping files, thousands of them, to an external source. What kind of files? Everything. Your personal data, surveillance, financials. She's trying to nuke you on her way down. I clenched my jaw. Then we nuke back. We worked through the night, Clara coordinating with federal investigators. By dawn, the SEC and the FBI had frozen Eleanor's accounts. By noon, her name was on every news outlet in the country. Eleanor Blake under federal investigation for fraud and extortion. When the agents came for her that afternoon, cameras captured everything. The pearls, the composure cracking, the woman who had built her life on manipulation being escorted out of her penthouse in handcuffs. Aisha watched the footage with tears in her eyes. It's over, she whispered. Almost, I said. One more thing. That evening, I released one final post on Verda's site. No accusations, no documents, just a statement. The strongest women aren't those who avoid the fire. They're the ones who learn to walk through it and come out carrying water for others. By the next morning, the post had gone viral. Tens of thousands of women shared it, tagging their own stories under the hashtag #WalkThroughFire. For the first time in years, I didn't feel hunted. I felt seen. But when I finally lay down to rest, my phone vibrated once more. One last message, from an anonymous sender. She wasn't working alone. And attached, a single line of code, one I recognized instantly. Verda's earliest prototype. Somewhere, another player was already moving their piece. If you've ever survived a storm so loud that silence feels foreign afterward, you'll understand what the weeks following Eleanor's arrest felt like. The noise didn't disappear. It simply changed frequency. The cameras were still there, the headlines still flashing. But for once, they weren't dissecting me. They were documenting her fall. For the first time in nearly 2 years, I woke up without flinching at every phone vibration. The morning light over Manhattan felt softer, the air less accusatory. But peace, I realized, isn't quiet. It hums under the surface, waiting to see if you've really earned it. I spent the first days in motion, cleaning my apartment, reorganizing files, deleting old photos I'd once been afraid to lose. The red light across the street was gone, the blinds now closed, the apartment empty. Still, sometimes at night I'd catch myself glancing at that window, half expecting it to blink again. Aisha insisted on a celebration. You dismantled an empire, she said, waving 2 champagne flutes as if that alone would exorcise the ghosts. At least toast to it. We sat on the balcony, barefoot, watching the city glitter below. She raised her glass. To survival, she said. I raised mine. To starting over. She smiled. Same thing, really. But the calm didn't last long. 3 days later, Clara called. Her tone was clipped, professional, the voice she used when she was about to deliver a truth I didn't want to hear. Camilla, we've traced that code snippet from the last message. It's Verda's earliest build, lines you wrote during beta testing. But it was edited. Someone added tracking subroutines. Sophisticated ones. Who? I asked. Not Eleanor. Not Adam. This is newer. Weeks old. Someone inside? Yes, and not just anyone. Whoever did this has full system privileges. I stared at my monitor, the Verta logo glowing innocently. It felt like déjà vu. Another betrayal. Another ghost behind my glass walls. Find them, I said. The investigation unfolded like slow poison. We combed through server access logs, employee histories, encrypted emails, and there it was again. Patterns of midnight logins, hidden behind benign system maintenance tasks. This time, the culprit wasn't an old friend or an outside manipulator. It was someone I'd hired after the chaos. Ethan Lowe, our new cybersecurity chief. The irony hit like a punch. The man I'd brought in to fortify our defenses had been quietly dismantling them from within. Jake confronted him while I watched from my office camera feed. Ethan didn't run. He didn't even look surprised. "You think you're the only one who wants justice?" he said, calm as stone. "Adam ruined more than your marriage. He ruined dozens of lives. People invested in his mentorship program lost everything. Eleanor paid to keep them quiet. I'm making sure none of them forget. You leaked my data," I said through the speaker. "You put my company at risk." "I leaked proof," he said. "You just didn't like the method." Jake restrained him until authorities arrived. They took Ethan out in cuffs, and for a fleeting second, I felt something almost like pity. Revenge had become a contagion, one that infected everyone who'd come too close to the Blakes. That night, I didn't celebrate his arrest. I sat in the dark, staring at the skyline, realizing that every victory left a fracture somewhere else. Justice wasn't clean. It was jagged, uneven, and soaked in collateral damage. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the courthouse as Adam's final sentencing was read. 7 years in prison for fraud, 2 more for illegal surveillance. He didn't look at me once, but Eleanor did, from her seat at the defense table. Eyes hollow, face devoid of makeup, dignity stripped to its bones. When the gavel fell, I felt no triumph, only release. Afterward, Clara and I walked down the courthouse steps together. Reporters shouted my name, but she shielded me with her arm. "It's over," she said. "No," I replied softly. "It's balanced." Because that was the truth of it. Not a fairy tale ending, but equilibrium restored. By spring, Verta had tripled in value. Investors who'd once withdrawn now begged for partnerships. The story had shifted from scandal to resilience. We'd become a case study at business schools, a symbol of female-led integrity in tech. I laughed when I read that headline. If they knew how much blood it took to earn that integrity, they'd stop romanticizing it. One evening, as I was preparing for a keynote speech in Singapore, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a moment, my heart seized. But this time, the message wasn't a threat. "You were right to keep fighting. Some of us finally slept again. Thank you." A former investor. Anonymous. I read it twice. It wasn't closure, but it was something close. A faint echo of the justice I'd fought for. The night before my flight, I returned one last time to the pier where everything began. The wind carried the salt of the Hudson, the city lights bleeding gold across the water. For the first time since Adam's betrayal, I let myself breathe without bracing for impact. I thought of Kara, the woman whose ghost had started it all. She'd never resurfaced, but sometimes I like to imagine her somewhere warm, rebuilding quietly, the way I had. Maybe she'd seen the headlines. Maybe she'd smiled. The tide lapped against the dock, rhythmic, forgiving. My reflection shimmered on the surface, no longer fractured, just blurred by movement. I whispered to the water, to the ghosts, to the woman I used to be. "You did it. You got out." And as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed one last time. This time, from Aisha. "Board's waiting. You ready?" I smiled. Always. As I walked away from the pier, the city stretched before me, loud, alive, untamed. The skyline wasn't a cage anymore. It was a map. I wasn't just Camila Rivera, survivor of betrayal. I was the architect of my own empire, and I had work to do. Camila Rivera's story begins with humiliation. A husband who publicly dismisses her dreams and secretly conspires to steal everything she's built. From that betrayal rises a slow-burn revenge that transforms humiliation into power. Through strategic patience, documentation, and courage, Camilla dismantles Adam Blake's empire, exposes his corruption, and reclaims her narrative. What begins as a domestic betrayal evolves into a thriller of surveillance, deceit, and corporate warfare. Camilla uncovers not only Adam's manipulation, but also the network behind him, his sister, his mother, and eventually a hidden accomplice embedded within her own company. Across 15 chapters, each act mirrors the classic revenge arc: fall, awakening, investigation, counterattack, and transcendence. The story's emotional center remains Camilla's reclamation of identity, the shift from being doubted and dismissed to becoming unstoppable. By the end, her vengeance isn't loud. It's strategic, poetic, and complete. She doesn't just win back her company. She redefines success on her own terms, turning every wound into wisdom. Her final act isn't revenge. It's rebirth,